Look, 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 look. I love you. Anyways,
Hopefully I like it.
hi, I'm Amanda,
And I'm Callie.
and today we are going to be talking about
Strategy books. They're very frustrating to read, and we don't like them. They're just not good books. They're not good. They're not fun to read.
They're not fun to read specifically the first time around. So when you're like, you really loved the first book in the series, you loved it so much, you just ate it up like it was candy. And then you get to the second book and you're so excited to read the second book in the series. You want to learn more about these characters that you love. However, not much is going on, or the stuff that is going on is kind of disappointing. Not much progresses in these books, but you still have to read them in order to get to the next book in the series. Disclaimer: after you've read the entire series,
When you reread this series, strategy books are so much easier to go through.
they're actually more enjoyable. You appreciate them more. But getting through them the first time, don't quit on a series because of a strategy book. That is the moral of the story here.
It's very frustrating for me when I feel like I'm reading 2 pages about a blue sweater when all I want to read is about like a romance that's happening. But it's so much easier to reread about a blue sweater once you get to the end of the series and you realize how important the blue sweater was.
I just want to know more about Ben Parrish, honestly.
Oh my gosh. Evan. Freaking Evan. And then I didn't even like that book because he was crispy at the end.
He was...
Yo, he's so crispy.
You don't get to know the characters. You get new characters. But then,
You don't get to know anybody.
No.
You really, really don't.
You know some of the backstories of the other characters. We're talking about the Infinite Sea. Sorry if we're losing you.
The Infinite Sea is probably one of our most recent strategy books that we've both read, and we were both really, really frustrated reading because it just wasn't very fun.
It was not. I read it in book form. She read it through Audible, and it was both hard from both perspectives. Here are some tips and tricks on getting through the strategy books. Thanks. So tip number 1 is read it in bursts. So have a secondary book with you. Let it be something light and easy, something that you really enjoy reading and you know you enjoy reading it. So that way when you get frustrated with your strategy book, you can put it down, read something else that's light and airy, and then come back to it. It takes a little bit longer to get through your strategy books,
But it does make it easier.
It makes it easier, and it helps you get the details that you need for the rest of the series.
Okay, our second tip for strategy books is speed read through them. And you can speed read the old-fashioned way, but that's pretty much just skimming it. I really wouldn't speed skim through any book because then why are you reading it?
You miss a lot.
Yeah, there's no point in that. But for those of you that use Audible, you can actually adjust the rate at which the narrator is reading. So I'm gonna actually show you guys.
To keep going. People stared, but I ignored them. Around the corner, the elevators were waiting, and I dashed forward.
It is not the best way to read a book. If you're gonna sit down and relax and read a book, that's not gonna do it. And I did turn it up really fast.
Our third tip that we want to mention, it's going to be like a last resort, and I actually did this while I was reading Infinite Sea because I struggled with it, is skimming. I would skim and I would see which characters were doing what. The beautiful thing about the Fifth Wave and the Infinite Sea is it is told by different character narratives. So if I didn't want to hear about Ringer or whatever she was going through, I could bookmark it and I could move forward to where Ben was.
And that is a benefit to reading a book as opposed to Audible because I could not do that.
And I did read the whole book, but I read it quickly because I wanted to have it out of the way so when the last star came, I could read that and enjoy it. I'm going to end up rereading this series, and I will probably have a ton more perspective and appreciation for the Infinite Sea the second time around. But right now, I just had to power through it, and that is just a last resort for me.
So,
Here
yeah,
are
we have some examples for you.
This is the air. After reading the selection series and falling in love with America and with, my mind went blank, Maxon, thank you. I was going to call him Sheldon, and that is so not right.
That is not right.
So,
That's going to be my baby's name. Don't blank on... Oh, no, not Sheldon.
Okay, so after falling in love with America and Maxon and being in their world at that time, moving forward to the next generation, it was hard because Edelyn, I think that's how you say her name, she is a completely different person. You're used to America's personality and to Maxon's personality, and Edelyn is just, she's a force to be reckoned with, and she's hard to love sometimes, and that's really, actually
that was part of the hard,
and it's good. I think Kara Cass was brilliant because that's how she wanted her to be perceived. That is how it works out in the book, because
you don't necessarily like her, and you're not supposed to
like her because nobody likes her, and that she realizes that she is not easy to love, and it's anyways, it's a good book, and I was so happy to finish reading it. It was good to get into. At the end of the story, I was like, oh, no, it's over, and that is the indication that you read a good book.
Yeah. So another example was New Moon. Anybody that's read Twilight, most people that have read Twilight will agree that New Moon was probably the hardest one to read. I need to know about Edward. You're wasting your time talking to me about this guy.
Or they're walking through the caves, and I'm just like, it's cold. I get it. Yes. I don't care. Where are you going?
But they were so necessary to get to the end when you realize that they're not actually werewolves, and they're shapeshifters instead, and that werewolves are something different, and then there's this whole world that opens up in the end of the book, and you don't realize that while you're reading, and you're just listening to these stories that have little tidbits of knowledge that they're not actually werewolves, and all the history and understanding that the whole world has been operating with all these mythical creatures for all this time. I was going through an incredibly dark time in my life when I was reading this, and I read it right before New Moon came out, and I was going through a loss, an incredible loss, and Bella was going through an incredible loss, and I'm reading the book, I'm watching the movie, and I'm listening to the soundtrack all the time. And now every time I read the book or watch the movie or listen to the soundtrack, it brings all that heartache and despair. It just makes it so much more of a strategy book. It does not make it easier, but that was just me and my personal experience with it.
I think a lot of people did struggle with New Moon, though. I think
it was a hard book to get through, even if you can set out all of your personal experience and just look at it without any bias. It was a hard book.
There's a lot happening in that book too. It wasn't just a stay in place kind of book like The Infinite Sea was.
Because then you went over to Italy and all that other stuff.
And you had all the stuff with the werewolves.
I even got sick when I read this for the first time. I even got sick of listening to the stories about the Volturi before Edward left. That I was just not interested. I wanted to experience more of the romance.
Relief when it was over and you got to go to Eclipse, that was a really good feeling.
And now when we reread them, we understand.
Yes.
Perfect example.
Last book, we've talked about this quite a bit as our example book, is The Infinite Sea by Rick Yancey. This
was the latest book that we've read that has been a major strategy book. And it was, the Fifth Wave was so good.
It was. It was so big and wonderful, and so much was going on.
But all those moving parts fit together so well. But half of that was because the world was working during that movie, it was just starting to the world was just starting to like stop. So all of those moving parts in the world and everything that we were reading about, I mean, we were well into the book by the time
Things quit.
Yeah, by the time things started really heating up and you started really getting to this story, all those moving parts, I don't know. He did a great job. And I think that part of the reason that this was hard to read was because he's trying to portray a fractured world. So we're getting a fractured story.
Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe so you can get more cool videos about books and whatnot. Always give in to the need to read.
Bye.
Guys.